We are just past the halfway point of the G1 Climax tournament. We'll break down what we've seen so far. We'll look ahead to what's next, and we'll see if Evil can maintain his winning streak or is he about to take a nasty fall. We're going to answer your questions as well with Jeremy Finestone. I'm Stephen Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like I mentioned, 5 matches in out of 9 for each of the blocks. We have one clear leader, the first person to double-digit points, Evil, threatening to muck up the whole tournament on us. Meanwhile, B block is abject chaos. I mean, literally everybody is right on the cusp of being in this thing and could move on to the playoffs. No one mathematically eliminated quite yet. So, Jeremy, as we look to this past week, we had 4 shows, especially. There will be 5 before we come back next Thursday. So a lot of action coming. But a few things have played out the way we thought they would. A few things haven't. But I'm still thinking this has been a fun tournament to watch, an exciting tournament to follow. How have you felt in week 2 now of the G1 34?
I mean, the excitement of the first week is like a little bit diminished, and we're kind of settling into what this tournament is going to be. And it feels like it's a lot of young guys on the come up and people establishing themselves, and basically the old guard in some way, shape, or form making way for the new guys. And I'm not entirely sure that we were ready for just how hard the G1 was going to be going to emphasize the this new generation of talent. But I got to tell you, I like the unpredictability. I like the fun of it. I am just enjoying myself with this G1, and I'm firmly in the I'm going to sit down and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, we're into the dog days of this tournament, so to speak. And in the middle of it, this middle section here, it's difficult to recapture the excitement of the first couple of days in Osaka when everything was fresh and new. It's difficult to match the excitement of the end when people are getting eliminated and you're going to see who wins. So this is kind of a thing where it's not the beginning, it's not the end, it's that middle part where we kind of sort out the contenders. So there isn't the tension that you have at the beginning and the end. So I kind of feel like it's the dog days. It's those. You're a baseball fan too, Jeremy. You know what I'm talking about. When you get into like July and August, like those days, you're just kind of seeing how your team does. It's a 162 game season up until Memorial Day, and through June, you're just like all full of hope. And then that hope starts to fade for Cubs fans. And then, you start seeing which teams are you actually going to follow down the stretch more, to see the pennant races. But this is that July and August period where you're just kind of waiting to see how things shake out. That's kind of how I feel about week 2 of the G1.
When you're trying to figure out where you think they're going with it, it's almost like that game show Wheel of Fortune where everyone starts to see what the message is at different points when they're making their spin. And we're at that point where you're starting to see things that are becoming clear that you thought would go in one direction but are definitely going into another. And it's early to see how everything is going to play out, but there's definitely a couple of parts of the greater message that I think that you can definitely figure out.
Well, let's get to it. We're going to follow the same format we followed last week, where we're going to run down the blocks. And instead of going match by match and show by show, there's just too many of them. We're going to hit the highlights of who's in the lead, their journeys, and then we'll go down the standings, so to speak. One thing that's to note, Evil right now is alone at the front of the pack in the A block. Now, neither one of us believes he's going to stay there. We think that the fall is coming, and probably coming fairly soon. It has been interesting to see Evil where he is. And let's just look at his journey. He has 10 points right now. He is 5-0. He had 2 matches this past week. He beat Tetsuya Naito in Nagasaki. At first, they did the whole Naito delay tactics. He came out in the full suit. Main event Naito, right? And he was selling Naito's delay tactics big time. He was getting very frustrated and all that. We also got one of Abe's better bumps as the timekeeper. The timekeeper bump was strong that night. He really wiped out big. There was, of course, House of Torture shenanigans. So there was a ref bump. Bushi was at the announce desk, so they had Kanemaru take him out, attack him. they teased Naito overcoming it all when Togo ended up hitting Evil with the powder. Evil was holding Naito, and then Naito ducked, and so the powder went in Evil's face. Kanemaru tried the whiskey, missed that. Bushi misted Kanemaru, and it just looked like LIJ was going to overcome all of it. But after a Destino from Naito got only 2, and again, it was only kind of a half of a Destino, Evil escaped a second attempt at it and hit everything as Evil. And then he even beat up Naito a little bit afterwards, put him in the sharpshooter after, and that was the win for Evil. Again, Naito's health, we don't know about his knees, and the way Evil is currently wrestling with the House of Torture character, this was not the best match. And it wasn't awful, but it wasn't their best work. And then in Fukuoka, he went on to beat Callum Newman after Dick Togo attacked Newman in the aisle. And then there were more Togo shenanigans later. Everything is Evil again. So Evil is following through on what he promised in the press conference, where he basically said, I'm going to win and have the worst match every night. And I don't care. Again, this is part of House of Torture rejecting. It's a little meta, isn't it, Jeremy? They are simply rejecting everything about New Japan. Okay, we all know that you fans are here to see great wrestling matches. That's why you're here. That's why you love us. And the heel part of House of Torture is totally different than what the War Dogs are doing. The way that the House of Torture asserts their heelness within that culture is to just say, we're just going to have bad matches. We're going to do things. It's going to be slow. It's going to be plotting. We're going to do ref bumps and then the interference and all the stuff that irritates you guys. And we're going to be open about that. So they do this with Evil. They've done it before with Evil in the G1, where you tease the idea that he is not going to give you the big matches and the good matches that you want. He's going to muck it all up. So that's what they're doing here. Evil in first place. But when you look at who he has left, Jeremy, there's some real
dangerous.
pitfalls.
It's dangerous.
Yeah. So tell you what do you think of Evil's tournament thus far? Is that the story they're telling with him? What do you think?
I like to call what's happening to Evil as the Jeff Cobb trajectory in years past, where the start is mighty, but the fall is mightier. And he has, let's see, we got Zack Sabre Jr. on one night. We got Shingo on another night. Got Great Okan, I think, in between those. And then Shota Umino to close it on the last night. And he has 10 points. It's a theoretical that if he got 12, he'd be in. But if he got 10, it's not so sure, and perhaps on a tiebreaker. Given that some of those other guys are chasing at his heels, I think the story here is the methodology of Evil's wins won't get him all the way to post-block play. But I'm going to enjoy the story of how it doesn't work out.
I got word here from Colin. Hi, Colin. Glad you're joining us here. That we had some YouTube ads pop up there in the middle of that. So again, just for the very quick recap of it all, we were just saying that House of Torture just rejects the idea of having good matches altogether. That's kind of their heel shtick. The idea that you people are here for really good matches. We're not going to give them to you. And now Evil is threatening to go all the way in the A block and make sure we don't get any good matches all the way to the finals. We think that that's going to turn around on him. And you mentioned this too, Jeremy, before we got on the air a little bit, that Shota Umino match on the last night really kind of speaks to us, because he's going to be in a position where he can either save us from Evil, deliver us from Evil, and get in himself as the king babyface here, the new Tanahashi. That seems like a nice setup for him slipping through and not Evil there at the end.
Yeah, so if Evil lost every match up to Shota Umino, he would have 10, and potentially Shota Umino could have 8 or 10 points at this point. And if he were to beat Evil, Shota, on that last night and get 10, he would get a tiebreaker over him, and potentially, that could get him into post-block play. He's tied for third in the race right now. So it's his opportunity to lose at this point. And it should be pretty curious the Shota Umino journey. But when we're talking about Evil, I think the drama is that he threatens so much in the beginning, and then the joy is watching as the certainty slips away.
Now, another person that we predicted would win this block at the beginning is Zack Sabre Jr. He's right in the mix. He, in fact, has 8 points. He is the only person, aside from Evil, past the 6-point mark. And this is really kind of a have and have not block here. This is Zack on 8. Everybody else, not named Evil, is behind them with 6 or fewer. And Zack, this past week, he beat Jake Lee in Nagasaki. The interesting thing about that match, and there wasn't a lot interesting about that match, but Zack is usually the lankier guy, but Lee has even longer arms and legs than Zack does. So there was a lot of grappling. There were also a lot of dead spots in this one. Zack worked Lee's left arm. Zack took a lot of knees to the gut. A lot of knees to the gut. That was his move, boy. He attempted a choke slam, but Zack turned that into a triangle. He tied Lee up in a submission and got the tap out. So that was his Nagasaki match. And then as they moved on, he lost to Shota Umino. And this was a match. So at that point, by the way, Zack was 4-0. So he had 8 points and was tied with Evil on top. Went into that match with Shota Umino, and it was third from the top. So they didn't go very long. It wasn't short in the, like, it wasn't a flash pin or an early one, but you could tell were not giving away everything the two of them could do. There were 2 matches on after them. They were holding back some things here. Again, Jeremy, that goes a little bit toward Shota sneaking in at the last bit, because this definitely was not all that Zack and Shota could do in the ring with one another, as if they were holding off for next time. And but it was a decent match, but they were definitely having a third from the top match here. There was a classic story. Oh, go ahead.
This is what you were saying when we were in the dog days of the tournament, where everything's fine. You know, like, you're not getting bad matches, but the diamond in the rough match is going to smack you out of nowhere. And it's sometimes not going to be the obvious one, like Shota and Zack Sabre Jr. It was great. But you were saying, it just, like, there was meat left on the bone, if that makes any sense.
And probably intentionally. It wasn't because they weren't trying. It's because I think they know they're coming back to this fairly quickly. But anyway, this was a classic story. Zack got the better of the submission game. Umino was doing better with striking. Eventually, it led to a Death Rider for a finish. It was good for what it was, but with 2 more matches in the night, they held back. But anyway, that kept Zack from staying in the lead with Evil, and gave us this drama about Evil taking over the entire block. But overall, good wrestling from Zack. You know, it takes a lot to get something out of Jake Lee. Someone did. We're going to talk about that. But this was probably as bad a Zack match as you're going to see. Probably the least good Zack match was the Jake Lee match, whereas the Umino match was pretty darn exciting. So having a terrific tournament, still in prime position to move on to the playoff round. I still feel good about my pick with Zack.
Let me ask you this. His next match is going to be with Shingo Takagi. Would you pepper losses for Zack Sabre Jr. throughout this, or would you have his next match be immediately a loss so that Evil also has a loss, and you're just kind of keeping them neck and neck, but they're chasing? And it makes you feel like Zack still is not quite in the driver's seat.
Well, let's see. Well, what is Zack still has? What he has? Gabe Kidd to come. He's Sonata.
Got Shingo on his next one is Shingo.
Yeah.
The one after that is going to be Sonata, and then it is Evil on the second to last night, and then Jake Lee on the last night.
Yeah, he could lose to Shingo here and get Shingo up to 6, keep him at 8.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at Shingo. I totally apologize.
No, that's okay.
He's got Shingo on the first one. Yeah. He's got Evil on 2 nights from now. After that, it's Gabe Kidd, and then it is Sonata on the last night.
Yeah, so you could definitely do something with. He could lose to Shingo and stay in the ball game, definitely, and you know that could be a way to do it. It would get Shingo up to 6 and put him more in a threatening position. You know, what you want, of course, is for as many people as realistically possible to be in it until the last day. So yeah, Zack doesn't have to win out by any means here. He could get tripped up again. Shingo would be a good one to do it with, because it would also give Shingo a big win and get him back into contention, keep Sabre in contention. Yeah, that could definitely work.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking if he were to lose and Evil were to lose, and then they were to face off, Zack would then catch him at 10 and Evil would be behind him in a tiebreaker as well, setting him up to lose multiple tiebreakers down the line. I like that.
All right. So that's an idea of what they might be doing with Zack Sabre Jr. Still wrestling very, very well. After that, we had Shota Umino. So I feel like we've already been talking about him throughout this whole thing. He's been interwoven with what we've been discussing. But he beat Great-O-Khan in a real good match in Nagasaki. I thought Umino looked really good in that match. A lot of Bushido spots, trading blows back and forth. Bushido being that whole warrior spirit thing where you square off in the middle of the ring and take turns hitting each other. They both worked that pretty well. In the end, he ended up hitting a Death Rider. This was a good match between Shota and Great-O-Khan. And then in Fukuoka, he beat Zack in the match that we just mentioned. And he's 2 in back of Eagle, 1 in back of Zack, definitely in the mix. And now he has a tiebreaker over both of those guys. So I have a feeling that, like I said, Shota is on the way up the scoreboard.
Yeah, I kind of thought that with his injury and everything, they were gonna load manage him a little bit, but there's no load management here. He's just fighting through the pain, and I got to give him some respect on that. He's got Sonata up next, then he's got Naito, then he's got Jake Lee, and then he's got Evil. He's got to get to 10, and I feel like he's gonna beat Sonata. And then he's going to struggle with Naito and Jake Lee, perhaps. And then, any one of those 3. But I feel like Shota beating Evil on the last night is one of the biggest. You kind of have to give that one some weight. And I'm not sure if he beats Naito, but given who has beaten Naito so far, I rule nothing out.
You're right, but I also, we're going to get to him in just a little bit, but I also feel like Naito's not going to be doing a whole lot more losing either, because he's a couple back.
There's only so much room on this thing. And if we were to flip out Jake Lee for Shota, you could still have Naito, you could still have Zack Sabre Jr., and you could still have Shota Umino with Naito and him both at 10. But
because you look at Naito's
bracket thing.
Here's my point on
bracket seating.
Here's my point on Naito. You can get him to 10 points theoretically pretty easily. He has the Great-O-Khan coming. He has Callum Newman coming. He has Gabe Kidd coming. All of those are matches that Tetsuya Naito could win. Shota Umino is probably the most questionable, just in that sense of, like who's higher on the pecking order. He's definitely higher up on the pecking order than O'Khan, Newman, or Kidd. So you can definitely get Naito in the mix. It's Shota is the one, if you wanted to, and I'd imagine it's the world heavyweight champion. They at least want him in contention until the final day. So I see him winning at least 3 of these last 4, and maybe all 4.
So here's where I'm not sure. Okay. One of the things that I've been looking at this entire time is Naito and Callum Newman. And at this point, Naito could beat Callum Newman, and it could just be all academic. But it sure seemed like they were building up something big for Callum Newman and Naito, given everything going on. Now, we'll get to that aspect of it, because we're on the Shota Umino advocacy on this right now. If Shota Umino beats Tetsuya Naito, he would end up being in the tiebreaker over him. And so we would have to revisit that match potentially in the next block. Could Shota beat Naito 2 times in a row? I don't know. But if he doesn't beat Naito, it still would potentially lead to the same scenario in post-block play, just to flip back and forth. So do you have him lose post-block play and have him get those wins back if he were to go to post-block play? Because there's no way Naito at this point seems like he is going to have an opportunity to win the block and get the bye. It's like, it's possible, but I feel like he's going to have at least 1 loss. And if he has 1 loss, he's going to fall down the seeding chart, if you will. So I'm trying to think, does it make more sense that Shota Umino advances and beats Naito in block play, or advances without beating Naito in block play. And the more that I talk about it, I feel like if we're saving Shota and Zack Sabre Jr. for later, he has to lose to Naito now and then get the big win in post-block play.
Essentially do what we thought was going to happen with Jake Lee. Yes. Where he loses to Naito early, but beats Naito in the playoffs, and then falls to whoever ends up winning a block altogether, which we think is Zack. So it could be just Shota in that spot instead of Jake.
So I think I talked myself into the scenario. We'll see what happens.
Gabe Kidd has had a fascinating tournament. He was 2-1 coming into the week, but he lost to Sanada and Nagasaki. Worked Sonata's bicep a lot, which of course is what you would do because since Sanada revealed that he tore it in a match with Kidd last year. So they went right back to that. It was Sonata's best performance of the tournament so far, that Gabe Kidd match. Fun sequence of suplexes and skull ends, in and out, floating over each other. Good stuff. Just reminds you that while Kidd has become one of the best brawlers in all of wrestling, still a really good wrestler too. Mm-hmm. And Kidd was working to a double wrist lock a lot. It was really well done, but Sonata ended up hitting a deadfall out of that sequence I was talking about where they were going in and out of suplexes and skull end moves and things. He ended up getting deadfall, and he won it. So Kidd dropped that match, but he beat Shingo Takagi in Fukuoka, and these two went to a proper war with one another. And this was the brawling end of him. And at the 10-minute call, it had already been an intense and fierce match between the two of them. It was very exciting. And, of course, one of the things Kidd really excels in is bringing that intensity and that anger, and it looks like he is fighting for his life. And he tapped into that for the Shingo Takagi match. It was really good. Yeah, he won it with a pile driver. And Kidd did the thing again where he feigned his sportsmanship, like after he did in San Jose with Ultimo Guerrero, where he helped up Shingo and then ended up low blowing him, cheap shotting him, tossing him out of the ring. And it was, again, really good. He's been very strong. He's not going to win this tournament, but he is really helping himself. He then did a fairly good job on commentary, I think, really, with Walker on the last show. He stayed in character, but didn't go overboard with it, and gave some pretty interesting insights. So not a lot Gabe Kidd can't do right now, man. I talk about somebody who's just launching himself in a career. He's not going to be a commentator. That's not what I'm trying to say. But right now, Kidd just seems to be hitting on all cylinders. His promos are good. His brawling's good. His wrestling has been good. He's even able to sit down with Walker and speak extemporaneously about action going on in the ring. This is a guy who's really put things together in 2024. Was always talented, but it's fun seeing a guy just kind of figure out what his niche is in this business, isn't it? We're really seeing it with Gabe.
I like to compare wrestlers to older wrestlers and vibes that I get from them. And right now I'm getting a lot of mid-90s Steve Austin, in all honesty. Like, he's just a madman with intensity, and he's solid in the ring, and his charisma as just a violent, angry man is coming across over and over and over again. I don't know if I feel this way, but I would not argue if you said that Shingo Takagi and Gabe Kidd was the best match that anyone saw. If they say it was the best match that they saw in the last week of G1 matches, I wouldn't argue. I'm not sure, but for what that match was, and if that is your kind of match, they did that match very well. And I also think it's incredibly interesting the amount of effort that they are going to tease turning Gabe Kidd face in this tournament. They are testing the waters immensely. We had that first night against Evil where they shamelessly had him as set up as the babyface. And the crowd was just like, yes, we are here for this. Absolutely. We had it. It was great. And then, he had the match with Shingo, and it was over, and he wanted to do the handshake, and everyone was like, what the hell is this? He had everybody on the hook, and he did the shake, and they kicked Shingo in the nethers, in the gut, and sent him packing. You're just like, they're testing the waters, man. They want you to want it. And I think a lot of people want it.
Yeah. I really think, and I'm not saying that I have inside information, man, if you want to get David Finlay over as the heel asshole of the War Dogs, have him turn on Kidd and kick him out of the group. You get a baby face that everybody wants. You get Finlay's the big jerk for victimizing the guy that they kind of love to hate. That whole thing that could really work. Just think about it, guys.
Absolutely.
Because you're right and they might be going with this because the crowd's going to turn a baby face whether they want him to be or not. So the smart move would be to eventually go with it. Now they're being smart about it in having him do nasty things to people that the crowd really likes after feigning sportsmanship to them. Again, Ultimo Guerrero is barely a rudo. He's almost like he reminds me a little bit of I mentioned Satoshi Kojima as a 50-year-old who wrestles well, but also as Naito is a guy who in Lucha Libre, you couldn't get the crowd to boo him if you really tried to. He's just too much of a legend. They love him too much. It would be like trying to turn Naito heel. They're just not going to boo him. But Shingo is a guy that the crowd absolutely loves. So doing something nasty to Guerrero, doing something nasty to Shingo, that's all ways to keep him as a heel. But they can't deny that the crowd just gets behind him. There are Gabe Kidd chants, even against Shingo Takagi. There were Gabe Kidd chants. So this is going to happen. It's just a matter of, do they want to remain in control of it? And that's where you get the idea is like, okay, just listen to the crowd before it starts killing our babyface.
It is 2024 going into 2025. And right now we have one wrestling promotion in the world that is basically doing whatever they please. And everyone who watches that promotion absolutely adores it. And it's just going nuts. And the thing that they did was they stopped fighting their fans.
Yes.
And I think it's in New Japan's best interest right now when they're trying to rebuild interest, and this is their biggest opportunity, and they know Gabe Kidd has something to put that tease, to put that spotlight and say, hey, we know you keep watching. We're not going to fight you on this. You may have to wait a little while, but we're not going to fight you on this. And that's what I keep going back to, is that no promotion in 2024, 2025 has the luxury of fighting their fans about what the fans want.
Okay. Colin has a question. He says, where the hell's Chris Charlton been this tournament? So Chris is still around. Now, Chris broadcasts the show in the Tokyo area. So he can make it sometimes frequently to Yokohama, or he can even make it to Chiba sometimes. If it's during the week, he can't be there. He's got a day job. And then he doesn't always travel on weekends. And so I miss him too. It helped to have Gabe Kidd on there. Walker is moving into Gorilla Monsoon territory with sometimes his mangling of metaphors and some things. They look at this lack of disrespect for his opponent. Oh, Walker. Okay. And, there's just been a lot of kind of trip and falls over that kind of stuff. So, and of course, Chris is there to catch the missed calls on moves and all that kind of stuff as Walker finds his footing. And he has been missed, but we definitely feel like we feel pretty strongly, Jeremy, that we're going to have him back at the Korakuen Hall shows coming up this week, because he almost always does the Tokyo area shows. And then
he stays local to Tokyo.
I'm confident and he will go to Osaka or Sapporo on weekends when they have a big show, but he doesn't always travel the whole tour.
I do feel like they're strategically placing the English-speaking wrestlers for these shows where they can't get Chris Charlton, but he'll be back. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be back. And Colin mentioned that he thought that Takeshita and Uemura has been his match of the tournament so far. That was a damn fine match. Yeah, that was a good point. I think so far, just looking at the board right up here, boy, I did enjoy Shota and Shingo. That was a hell of a match. Yeah, there have been some good ones, definitely. All right. So now we've talked about what's going on with Gabe Kidd. Let's talk about the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Tetsuya Naito. We mentioned earlier that
having a Naito tournament.
We mentioned the loss to Evil to put him back at 1-3. So he's really behind the 8 ball right there. He worked the main event in Fukuoka with Sonata, and it did start getting good at around the 10-minute mark. The struggle brings drama, after all. This time it took 2 Destinos, but the second one was as close to a full Destino as we've gotten the entire tournament. And it was a victory, and we found out that this is the first roll call in Fukuoka since 2016. So they gave the fans that moment at the end there. The first roll call in Fukuoka in 8 years. So we got that moment, and Naito is now on 4 points. the matches he has left, we mentioned the Shota Umino match. He also has Great O'Khan, Callum Newman, Gabe Kidd. Again, a list of very winnable matches. And we expect the World Heavyweight Champion to be in the mix when we head down the stretch. So we feel like a bit of a run is coming for the champ. It doesn't have to be a perfect run all the way to the end, but could definitely be.
Yeah, 10 points. I think he can make it to the post-block play. We need to discuss what it would mean if Tetsuya Naito does not make it to post-block play.
I'd be very surprised. They
Right?
really try to protect. They try to protect the champion better than that.
I hear you, but
I mean, he finished 4th in the block. I just don't see.
There are things that they're doing in this tournament that would make you want to believe that this is a possibility, right?
Oh, sure.
Hello, Antonio. How are you?
Yes.
So there are things that you like. He has 4 points. He is definitely in danger, right? So we just need to have a conversation about whether or not you think it's really possible that he doesn't make post-block play.
Here's the thing. He has lost the tiebreaker to Evil now. It just makes me feel like he's going to basically win out. It does to me right here. I feel like he could very well win out and get in that way. He has to get 12 if he's going to get in, I think, because Zack is there. Zack won their match, so he's lost to Naito lost to Zack, right? Yes. So Naito does not have a 10-point tiebreaker with Zack or Evil, so he's got to get to 12 and get past Evil. He doesn't have to get past Zack if Zack makes it, but these thoughts
he does potentially have a tiebreaker with Shingo. So Shingo cannot get to 10 if this is the pathway.
Yeah, so I think he's going to go on a hot streak here. I don't see them leaving the World Heavyweight Champion out of the playoffs there. Yes. I just don't. You got to sell the tickets too. I mean,
right?
you got to sell tickets.
So I am gonna go with. I think he gets his 10 points. I think he beats Shota. I think he beats Gabe Kidd, and I think he loses to Callum Newman, and that's the shocking loss that he goes to the last night and he's got to win and get in against Great O'Khan.
Okay. Could be.
He would get 8 points going into the last 2, and then the drama is him losing to this young up-and-comer, and now we've got to beat this big monster to ensure that he can squeak in. I think we got that one.
Yeah. And maybe the thing is, if he ends up on 10 along with Evil, then Evil would advance. That's because Evil has a tiebreaker. Yeah. So then you would have theoretically Zack.
So he's got to get 12.
He has to get 12.
So he has to win out.
He's got to win out.
He has to win out, and Evil has to lose out.
Yes. If
Shota is to advance, not Evil. But if Evil were to advance, this doesn't matter. Like
correct.
If Shota loses on the final night, you can have Tetsuya Naito at 10. But if Shota wins on the final night and he already has 8 or 10, Tetsuya Naito is in real danger.
And it's a strange storytelling device to have a babyface lose to get another babyface in. Just saying that you could do it, but it would be a little awkward.
So, yeah, okay.
We'll see.
Messy. Very messy.
It is messy. Shingo Takagi is the next person we have to talk to. He lost both of his matches this week. He lost to Newman in Nagasaki, Callum Newman. This is a really good match, very dramatic. Shingo hit a lariat to the back of the head on an Oscutter attempt. Ugh, ouch. They're built with the big moves, of course. Newman hit a hand. Okay. There was a lot of consternation online because it looked a little bit like Shingo Takagi DDT'd him and he no-sold it, but that's not what happened. I went back and looked just because I did. It was very close. But what happened was he went for a DDT on Newman and Newman hit a handspring out of it. But I will admit that the way Callum Newman is so athletic and the way he takes some moves like that, like DDTs or brainbusters and all that.
It's like Ospreay, where it looks like he's taking the impact, but he's actually countering through.
Yes. So he did a handspring out of the DDT and then jumped up on the second rope, hit the Oscutter to win. I did see some people just say, sold the DDT. I don't think he did. I understand why you would think so, though, because it would happen very quickly.
He doesn't have the cachet for people to buy into him doing that because Will has done it for so long. And
well, you shouldn't know sell a DDT
accustomed
anyway. You shouldn't know sell a DDT anyway. There's no circumstance where you should really know sell a DDT.
If his head didn't touch the mat, it's not really a DDT.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. He did get his hands down, his handspring out of it right there. But then he lost the war, Shingo, to Gabe Kidd. So he ends up on 4 points. He's dropped more matches than we thought earlier on in this thing. His remaining matches: Sonata, Zack Sabre Jr., Jake Lee, and Evil. So Shingo needs a rally, but this feels like a guy who's going to come up a little bit short, maybe on the last day there, but I think he'll be in the mix, but probably not move on.
Yeah, I think he just lost this last one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did he lose the one before that?
Yeah, he's on a 2-match losing streak at least.
I don't think he's losing to Zack Sabre Jr.
Okay.
Because we were talking about that earlier about how like you create that tension of Zack going on a mini losing streak. So if he wins that one, that means he's probably going to have to drop a considerable amount of matches. But he's not losing to Evil. Mm-hmm. So if he's...
And he could beat Jake Lee. He could just...
He can beat Jake Lee and he can beat Sonata, and that gets them all to that 8 to 10
not quite range
that I thought Shingo, Sonata, and Evil were always going to be in, trying to get into the post-block play.
You get to that not quite range there, yeah.
That the bottleneck, they all kind of cost each other in some way, shape, or form because they're that old guard and they're trying to tell that story. Wow, yeah, I feel cool. This can be fun.
Callum Newman, he's had another good week. The match with Takagi, then the loss to Evil in a typical House of Torture match where it's just interference and everything is Evil to win. When Callum Newman is in a position to have a good match, he's having them. Like I said, the whole point of what Evil's doing is to not have good matches. They're quite literally trolling us for heel heat. But the important thing for Callum Newman is to go into this G1 and perform well, not win points. That's not the point for Callum Newman, if you pardon the pun right there. But Newman right now sitting on 4, doesn't really matter how many he's going to have at the end. He just needs to wrestle good matches. When he's in with somebody who's trying to have good matches and not playing a character like Evil's, he's doing exactly that. To me, his stock has gone up the way you hoped it would when we entered this tournament, as I root for the guy, and I think he is looking stronger and stronger and someone to take seriously going forward. So as far as I'm concerned, mission accomplished for Newman.
So I don't know if we've talked about this in the past. I'm pretty sure we have. I've always looked at the G1 as a resetting of the hierarchies within New Japan. And so when you look at what Callum Newman has done in this tournament, he's lost to Sonata, he's lost to Zack Sabre Jr., and he's lost to Evil. But he's beaten Shota Umino and Shingo Takagi, one of whom is a former IWGP champion. They are trying to tell you that this guy can win a big one.
Yes.
But he's not going to win all of them. So he has gone from, rookie class to hotshot phenom that is going to make impacts here or there. So to me, regardless of whatever happens, I think Callum Newman might win 1, maybe 2 more matches. I think the 6 to 8 range is about right for him. I think his tournament is made in a lot of ways. I think that whatever, he will get 1 more big win somewhere. It could be Naito, but either way, whatever it is, people who are following New Japan will be looking at Callum Newman differently because of the work that they put in and the work that he put in into changing where he is on the literal pecking order in the hierarchy of New Japan.
Great-O-Khan has he has 2 points, right? Great-O-Khan, yes, 2 points for Great-O-Khan. And he lost to Shota in Nagasaki. Another good match where he fights well but comes up a little bit short. He finally got his first win of the tournament over Jake Lee in Fukuoka, and it actually wasn't bad in the end. It was the first Jake Lee match that I didn't think was too awful. Lots of knee stuff from Lee again right there, but an Okan rally led to an eliminator to win. This is kind of a puzzling thing for me in that Great-O-Khan is wrestling really well. He's actually had pretty good matches throughout this entire tournament, just not getting any results. I am curious to see what happens with him after this tournament, because the story they're telling, just going 0-4 and then, beating Lee, and we'll see who else he gets. He still has Callum Newman. He still has Evil, probably going to win that one because we think that Evil's going to start tripping over hurdles down the stretch. He still has Sonata, could go either way. Naito, that one doesn't look good for him. So I guess they're just saying a middle of the pack finish. He started off the tournament saying, I'm going to wrestle other people's style of matches, which is a really terrible strategy, and it's turned out to be on that. But coming out of this, like, where is Great-O-Khan? Is he just kind of a mid-carder after this? And I'm still waiting to see what story they're telling with this guy.
I don't think there's a story. I think it's just going to go back to rural revitalization project with the King of Pro Wrestling provisional title. I honestly do not expect his next challenger to come out of this G1 tournament, because if it were, it would probably be Callum Newman, and that is antithetical to what the work that they've been putting into him in this tournament. Like, you don't build him up to get him primed for the provisional King of Pro Wrestling tournament. I'm sorry, that's not a great idea.
You're probably right that the KOPW thing is his story for the year. Like, can he get to the end? Because of course you're not the King of Pro Wrestling champion for the year until you finish the year with the title. It's a provisional title. And I think perhaps what we've discovered is the Great-O-Khan's story for 2024 is, can he cross the finish line with that belt that he seems to take very seriously? Or that's, his whole character is like you mentioned, the revitalization, tying things to the local area. That seems to be his concept for the belt. Can he get all the way back to Wrestle Kingdom with that title and be the KOPW champion for 2024? That's probably his main point for the year. And he's here to fill out the card in the G1, put some people over, get a couple of wins, and then move on from there.
I was looking at this map while you were talking this out. And
USVA guy believes in him, though. He says O-Khan run is coming and he's going to win out. I tell you, USVA guy is in Great-O-Khan's camp. The
Fitz will literally have to be in, giving the math so far. And we were talking about Shakely, but the Fitz would have to be in. I am looking at this, and based on what we were talking about, I think Great-O-Khan's getting 2 off of Evil, and then I really do think he's probably going to get a win off of Callum Newman, but then kind of take a backseat to Sonata and Tetsu Naito to get him kind of the 6-point range. And then if that were to happen, I'm not ruling out, based off of his performance and the fact that Callum Newman already beat Shota Umino, that Callum Newman might get a win over Gabe Kidd on the last night.
Maybe. The thing is, too, when we look at these matches coming up, we have to remember some of the way New Japan does these tournaments. Mm-hmm. If somebody's on 4 points and they're wrestling somebody with 6, tilts the scales in favor of the person with 4. They like to keep things nice and even and then saying, so perhaps a winning record for O-Khan down the stretch, but not a playoff spot. So the other one that we got to talk about, Jake Lee. He's the last guy here in the block. 2 more losses, fell to 1-4 after that initial victory. Lost to Zack in Nagasaki. Great-O-Khan beat him in Fukuoka. Not since the days of Triple H's plotting style have we seen such knee-centric offense, Jeremy. You remember when Triple H, everything was his knee? High knee. Yes. Then he'd bounce the knee off the guy, and then he'd do a backbreaker off his knee. And then it was the only moves Triple H had was knee-centric stuff.
Was his iron kneecap?
I don't know. But, not since the plotting days of him have we dealt with this. But he's not wrestling well, but never mind all that. We've beaten him up enough about that in some ways, but he's sitting on 2 points. If he maxes out at 10, he's already lost his tiebreaker to Evil. So you and I thought it would be weird, and it has been weird. Don't get me wrong. It's been weird that you would bring the guy in, do the whole thing where Geto goes to a Noah show and gives him the shirt, and then he just bombs out. We suspected that, this is going to be a push, a new guy. We're going to get the new guy push. And that's not what we're getting. They're telling a different story. Is the story, Jeremy, that he is leaving Bullet Club, or he's going to get pushed out of the War Dogs? To me, he's more of a House of Torture type of wrestler anyway, really, if you look at the way he kind of does things. So is the story that he's not a fit with the War Dogs? We didn't expecting to bring him in as a dud, but here it is. So he either has to rally and win out so that he can get to 10, but he still loses tiebreakers. He has Shingo, Newman, Kidd to come. So I wonder if Chris Sampson wasn't right when he was on here saying that he starts the tournament with the War Dogs, but doesn't end it with them.
I think there's a lot of validity to that theory now.
Yeah. I think he was
this
on
is
something.
where I'm going to try and have true humility and eat a giant bag of shit.
Yeah.
When I went out there and I was confident that Jake Lee was going to be a major game changer for New Japan coming into this, that the Bullet Club was kind of a tell. And there was a comment, I think a week or two ago, where somebody asked, how do we know that this isn't going to be just like Kaito Kiyomiya last year? And I very confidently said that I thought the Bullet Club Association and a number of other things led me to believe that this was going to be a different scenario than it was last year. And frankly speaking, it hasn't been. It has been a Noah guy coming in, eating a bunch of losses to protect New Japan guys for whatever reason that Jake Lee is wrestling the way that he is against these New Japan talents. Good matches against, foreigners, but not really wrestling well against the Japanese talent. The whole thing is just kind of leaves me with questions. But I do know that when I'm watching this, I was wrong, and we were talking about this in a certain way. So if you were to just take everything that we said and switch out the word Shota Umino for Jake Lee, I feel like we'd be in a much better place right now. And with that injury that we had, here we are. It is the young guy tournament, and they're trying to send that message in a lot of ways. Jake Lee ain't it. He's had passable matches this week. They have been certainly better than the first week matches. I'm still disappointed for a number of reasons over the Jake Lee situation and the way that he is wrestling and the roster and everything. It's not fun for me, and he just does not feel like a great fit. And I hope that they are able to find a role for him here where he is both welcome and he thrives.
All right. Well, we'll see what that is, whether it's another faction or something else there. But he doesn't seem like a War Dog. Just doesn't. I mean, he doesn't wrestle like him, doesn't act like one. So it's a strange fit anyway. But that's the A block. So, again, we're still feeling good about Zack. We're still feeling pretty good about Naito going on a run and sneaking in there, and maybe Shota Umino joining instead of Jake. But
and our dark horses are, again, Shingo, Sonata, and Evil. At this rate, they could always threaten.
And we didn't even mention Sonata too much, but just to see about Sonata right there, he's just kind of hanging around in this thing. But when you look at who Sonata still has to go, he's got Zack on the final night. He still has Great Okan. He still has Shingo. He still has Umino. That's a rough run in for Sonata right there. And at least he showed some signs of life over the course of the week. Sonata, the Naito match wasn't bad at all. So certainly, because the first three matches, I felt like Sonata was sleepwalking through the thing even more than he usually does. And he was just kind of a non-entity. This just feels like a tournament.
Sonata match was all right, though. It was
sure.
I liked it better for a Kid match, and then I felt like Sonata was showing up to work.
Yeah.
If that makes
there were signs of life.
There were. But if I felt like the signs of life with Sonata and any other wrestler would have led to an average match. The signs of life with Gabe Kidd gave it the heartbeat it needed because Gabe Kidd was not going to go out there and have a bad match.
All right. So that's the A block. Now let's take a look at the B block, which is a lot more gummed up. So everybody in this block is in it, definitely. And what we have are 6 guys on 6 points, 3 more on 4 points. And just El Phantasmo trailing the pack with 2. But I mean, he's in dead last, but he's only 2 matches back. That's how even this thing has been. So this is a different story over here. So I'm going to just go with the people that I think are. We got 6 guys tied for the lead. So I'm just going to.
You want to start with Red Narita?
No, we don't want to start with Red Narita. I want to start with David Finlay. So
okay.
Finlay got off to a rough start, but he's now on a 3-match winning streak after dropping his first 2. He beat Ren Narita in Fukuoka. There was a lot of fighting outside. And this one I thought, Jeremy, was interesting because Goto showed his value to Finlay here. Kanemaru jumped up and used the whiskey on Finlay. He just spit the whiskey in his face. But as he went to get the pin, Narita did, Goto pulled the ref out and tossed the shillelagh to Finlay. And he ended up getting into a duel with Narita and his push-up bar. So you had the push-up bar versus the shillelagh. Finlay won out with that, hit 2 buckle bombs, power bomb to win. So the one thing I'll say about Goto as a heel manager is he doesn't really interfere. He's a cheerleader. He can help cut the promo afterwards in Japanese to the crowds, but doesn't usually interfere.
He believes his guy can get the job done.
Yes, and he didn't with Okada. He didn't really with Jay White either. But when House of Torture pulled their crap, Goto sprung into action and saved his guy. So how about Goto? Huh? And anyway,
babyface Bullet Club.
Yeah, against House of Torture they are, and I like that he actually played to that. After that, Finlay wrestled Takeshita in a really good one. That main evented the Yamaguchi card. And as always, there is a David Finlay match now where he just beats the guy down for a while. And there's a long period of selling as Finlay kind of asserts his physical dominance right there. And after the usual selling by Finlay's opponent here, Takeshita ended up making a comeback. He buried Finlay in a bunch of chairs on the floor outside the ring, hopped in the ring, hit a rolling senton over the top rope to the floor onto the pile of chairs with Finlay underneath it. Ouch. But pretty impressive move, really. Like, who was it that said, and I don't know, who was it? Was it Gabe Kidd that was on commentary? Just said, that's some DDT shit right there, which I thought was pretty funny. There was a Red Shoes bump during the big moves. The Red Shoes bump wasn't a huge one, but what it allowed for was for Takeshita to get the visual pin. So he hit a last ride power bomb. He got the visual pin on Finlay, but he ended up taking the shillelagh shot for a 2 count and then overkill for a Finlay victory. He seems to be on the upswing. He's had 2 good matches, and I think Finlay is definitely going to be a threat going down the stretch into this one. You know, they always want the leader of Bullet Club to be in some kind of major position.
I'll be honest with you. I think Finlay looked great in this tournament. I know there are the Finlay haters out there, but he has played his role well. He has 100% settled into the role of leader of Bullet Club in many ways. And I know that people are calling for Gabe Kidd to take over. Nah, let David Finlay cook. Did you see his backstage comments after his last match?
I haven't seen the backstage comment from yesterday yet.
One of his choice quotes was, when he was talking about after beating Takeshita, AEW is where I send people who aren't as good as me.
Oh, I did see that. You know what? I take that back. I did see that bit. I did. Yeah.
And I was just like, that is how you build a wrestle dynasty, my friend.
Well, he is. Well, that's also true. But the other thing is, I mean, he is New Japan through and through.
Yes.
The
day he goes to WWE.
But I mean, if someone offers you hundreds of thousands of dollars more than what you're making, you gotta listen. But I think he loves being a New Japan wrestler. I think that's very real. And so there's a little bit of it like, hey, I stayed. But you didn't get their money offer yet, David. But you might someday. I
do think he wants that New Japan cred when he goes over there and he can get the Tamatonga push right out the gate, because like it is a different company over there, and I do not see him thriving in AEW, but I do see him thriving in WWE. And there is going to come a day where his time is going to come up in New Japan, and we are all going, and it is going to be hilarious because everyone's going to be fucking sad. Like they're going to be so sad when David Finlay leaves New Japan one day, because he's not going to be there forever. Let's be honest. You know, he's got goals and aspirations, and once he, achieves all his goals here, which I believe he will after a period of not being quite so sure, that dude is primed for success, and I hope he gets the bag.
He's got a kid now too. He's got to be thinking about that money. But again, not that he's getting offers today. He's still got a New Japan contract. But as someone to keep a lookout for, and this personality work will only help him with the North American companies.
But he is firmly developing into a all tools wrestler. Like he has the main event ability.
Dunstan has joined us. Good to see you, Dunstan. We're glad
Hi,
you're
Dustin. Oh, I wanted to give a shout out to Zack Zero.
Mhm.
I spoke with him in another Discord, and he reached out to let us know that he listens to our podcast and he enjoys listening on his drive on Friday. And I wanted to just give a shout to him. Thanks for listening, and we really appreciate when we get feedback from you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely glad he's here too. So glad he's listening in. After that, since he just had the match with Takeshita, let's talk about him.
Sure.
So he defeated HENARE in an excellent strong style match. Lots of high impact moves. This was a lot of fun to watch. HENARE, we're gonna talk about him next and his type of match, which is different than a Finlay type of match or an Ishii type of match. But he is developing his own thing. HENARE is, and Takeshita wrestled a very interesting version of it. It ended up getting the Raging Fire Spinning Driver. That's what that's called. They called that one the Raging Fire Spinning Driver. I enjoyed that one a lot. Terrific match. Takeshita with the win there. And then he had the loss to Finlay to keep him in with the pack, keep him at 6 points. Now he's only won one of his last 3. So a little bit of a cooling off overall for Takeshita, but wrestling very, very well. He's been a real breath of fresh air. Fun to see a new guy. Fun to see all of the new matchups there. He still has Ren Narita to go. He still has Hirooki Goto and Takeshita. I'm going to enjoy that one. El Phantasmo, New Japan's Droopy Dog, and Bolton Oleg and Takeshita. So it'll be an interesting tournament down the stretch for Konosuke.
Yeah, he has made an impact with a giant sledgehammer. I am thankful for every match he is in. I am looking forward to every match with increasing enthusiasm, and I am just so glad he's in this tournament. I don't know what to say other than you should watch every Takeshita match that he's having in New Japan, because it is everything that you have either wanted to see him unleash in AEW and you've been held back from doing, or you have seen him in DDT and you want him to have an opportunity on a larger stage. When you are checking this out and you have not seen the Takeshita match and you're like, should I get a New Japan World and watch G1? Yes, you should. And you should watch all the Takeshita matches. Thank you. That is my review.
And Dunstan says, have there been any young talent that's impressed you so far in the G1? Well, we talked a little bit earlier, Dunstan, about Callum Newman. So that was somebody that we feel has done very well. We're going to talk about Bolton in a little bit. Takeshita, maybe not as I don't know how old Takeshita is, but as far as being new to New Japan, deeply impressed with that guy as far as being a new person here. So
a rookie to the company, if you will.
We figured he'd be good, and he has been. So there you go. After that, we have HENARE. So let's talk about the never openweight champion here. He is developing his own kind of match, like I mentioned. His whole thing has been Tamashi, which is, of course, what they call the Oceania version of New Japan. Like they have New Japan Strong over here. It's Tamashi when they're over there. That means that fighting spirit, basically. And he always wants to square off and test that in his opponent, and it turns into a big slugfest. That's the whole thing. So as Aaron HENARE, when he was with Hantai and all that, he wrestled. He just wrestled. And he was good at it. He was good at it. Nothing wrong with Aaron HENARE. As this version of his character, when he is, not as cut, he's a little bulkier. He's got the tattoos now and all that, and he's just going full warrior spirit type of thing. Every single match, he's just like, come on, hit me. We're going to just exchange moves. Let's see if you have it inside of you. That's the story that HENARE tells in his matches now. And he did it against Takeshita, like I mentioned. It was really good. He had he got a win there. He went into the week 2-1. He got the win over Yuya Uemura in Yamaguchi to get up to 6 points and keep Uemura at 6 points. Again, we're just kind of gathering everybody together right here. But I've enjoyed HENARE's work. It does look like they're setting up something with Gabe Kidd, because they keep eyeing each other, whether even when they're not in the ring with one another. That'll be terrific if and when it happens. Just HENARE right now has really developed this character into something that's making for very interesting matches. It's been going on for a while. I mean, I saw him against Shingo Takagi for that never open weight title in Las Vegas last year, and I loved it. And now he's really become someone whose matches I'm very much looking forward to in that BMF type of zone where space that used to be occupied by Ishii and Goto and Makabe, where it's just going to be two strong guys beating the hell out of each other. I'm enjoying this from him.
How many points do you think HENARE ends up with?
Yeah, I mean, 8 or 10. Yeah, but probably 8 or 10.
This one may not be people get in with 12. The people who win have to win 3 out. 3 people have to win 3 out of the 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the rate that it is, even though Phantasmo is not out of it, he's basically 1 match out of it. Or if he loses 1, he's basically done. And I don't think he has an opportunity to do that, but he will still be, important come the 14th. With HENARE, I look at that match with Cobb, and I think everyone is kind of assuming Cobb wins that match. But I think that's the big HENARE that's his big win kind of thing, is just kind of surpassing Jeff Cobb, goes past 15 minutes, that kind of thing. And then they have a little bit of rivalry in United Empire. I don't know. I don't know where you go with HENARE if it's not just a standard title match. And hey, look, HENARE is just having great matches. We know he has great matches. What do you do with him after that? So giving him a little extra spice in one of these wins upcoming would be pretty cool. And he's got Goto, he's got Yota Tsuji, he's got Jeff Cobb, and he's got Ren Narita. And as much as I want to say him beating Ren Narita is a virtual certainty, I certainly don't think so.
No.
I don't think him beating Yota Tsuji is a guarantee at all, given Yota Tsuji is behind. So he's got to lose a couple, and he's got to win a couple. And Hirooki Goto and Jeff Cobb are the other 2. So I don't know. If he only wins 1 more, I'd lean towards him losing to Hirooki Goto. But if he were to lose 2, I think Jeff Cobb might be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, Cobb's definitely a choice for that spot. I still feel like Yota Tsuji is probably headed a little bit more toward the global title than the Never title. So, Goto would be an interesting one, because you look at HENARE's losses, and we mentioned that a champion losing to someone in G1 doesn't guarantee a title match, but it's an obvious way to head that direction. And his losses have been to Finlay, global champ, so never mind that, Takeshita, who's not sticking around. So if they want to pull a Never Openweight challenger out of this tournament, they don't have to, but if they did, Goto, Tsuji, who possibly, I still think he's heading toward global, and Cobb. So some possibilities there for a key loss, and then for a Never Openweight thing down the road.
Yeah, so very interesting trajectory for HENARE. I am glad that he's finishing strong. He only won 2 matches last year, and he has a chance to double that win output for this year. I think the work that he has put in between this year and last year has been tremendous, and it is paying off.
Yeah, and I just like that he's revitalized his entire character there. It's just he's doing something different, and I'm enjoying it. Yuya Uemura. Now, after starting 4-0, he's now dropped 2 in a row. But so in addition to the loss we mentioned to HENARE, he suffered his first defeat in Fukuoka to Jeff Cobb. The match was very, very good. The crowd was really invested in it. They are starting to really believe in Uemura, and they were really cheering for him during that Jeff Cobb match and wanted him to go 5-0. Just didn't quite happen. He did hit some dragon suplexes for near falls on Cobb, which could not have been easy. Cobb's an athletic guy and definitely helped him out right there, but still, it's Jeff Cobb, right? And it takes a lot of power. Cobb ended up hitting an F5 in a Tour of the Islands to beat him. So with Uemura, though, he's dropped the 2, but he's playing with house money. He's already accomplished his mission of being noticed for his wrestling. It's interesting because he's in his first G1 as well, but I really feel like he's in a very different position than Newman or Bolton, or even Takeshita as a guest. But even though they're all those 3 guys that I mentioned there, Newman, Bolton, and Uemura are all in their first G1s, the situation feels very different for Yuya in that we said he needed to wrestle well. It would help Newman. It would help Bolton. But if Uemura kind of came in and was kind of a wet dish rag in this thing and just kind of went through the tournament and it was a nothing, that would really hurt him. He's helped himself by having some of the very best matches in a pretty good tournament, in a really good tournament. So to me, mission accomplished there. He doesn't need to make the playoffs. There are other stories to be told, and he's not quite at that level that you just want to shove him there yet. So I think he's accomplished his mission already, which is to wrestle well and come out of this looking like someone to take seriously. And from the crowd reaction, the New Japan fans feel the same way. So if they come out of this with a guy who is wrestling well and is more over than when he got here, that's a victory for Yuya Uemura, and I think he's done it. So just keep doing what you're doing, Yuya. I'm on your side. I like you. You backslid a little bit, but now we're starting to see the guy with all that potential that we were looking at earlier in the year.
You're absolutely right. He debuted, or he returned from his excursion just after the G1 last year, so he's been cooking on the roster for a little while. He was wrestling Yota Tsuji with the hair match, and he got a pin over Yota Tsuji earlier on in the year. So he's had a little bit of like momentum, but this was a story that they've been deliberately telling. Whereas a lot of these other guys is like, oh, I just got here and I'm ready to go. This guy's like, I've been paying attention. Like I said last week, it feels like he is the culmination of a video, like a Rocky montage, where he did a bunch of training in the background and we never saw it. That's what Yuya Uemura looks like. And he to me feels like he's positioned as like that upper mid-card guy that now you're rooting for to really succeed, but you're not going to get it right away. It's like you've been given indications that this guy can do it. Like he can go far. And now you're going to be with him on his journey as he fails a little bit and he succeeds and he climbs that organically, while we have these other guys like Yota Tsuji and Shota Umino that, we're here a little bit earlier and you're going to get a little bit quicker gratification with them.
Yeah, his next match is against Phantasmo, and then he has Ren Narita, and he finishes up in an interesting way. Finishes with Yota Tsuji, and of course we know that rivalry quite well. All the draws they've had, and then the hair versus hair match, and finishes up with Bolton. So an intriguing run right there. There's some winnable matches in that batch for them, especially with stories they're telling with Phantasmo. We'll see how
Tsuji go the entire way. I'm looking at this and like, I think Yuya Uemura is not going to make it, but is 12 the magic number in this bracket?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's a mess over there. I mean, we got 6 guys on 6, so we're going to have to start separating this a little bit.
And we have what, 4 matches left in this block.
Yeah.
And if that were to happen, a number of these guys would only lose 1 on the way out.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Jeff Cobb. He gave Uemura his first loss. Then he beat Phantasmo and Yamaguchi. The Uemura match was very good. The El Phantasmo match is also good, but the story was more about ELP, and we're going to get to ELP in a little bit. That match was a bit more about telling Phantasmo's story, I meant. But Cobb is wrestling well. He's in the mix, and it's one of these things where he's just a guy who can credibly beat anybody. So every time Cobb goes into the ring, he might win, and yet he's still vulnerable. He drops enough matches that it could go either way. And with Cobb, it's not it could go either way because he's a mid-carder. It's just because they've booked him successfully enough that he gets enough of those big wins over top guys every once in a while that you have to take that seriously. But he also loses just enough that he's always in jeopardy in every match. So you go into it feeling that it could head any direction, and that's an exciting thing down the stretch in a tournament like this. I don't know if I explained that very well, but he does have Bolton coming up. He still has the match with Yota Tsuji that I'm really looking forward to. We have the HENARE one that we talked about, and Finlay. So HENARE, Finlay, and Tsuji is a pretty rough stretch for Cobb right there, and it's hard to find too many wins for him out of this.
I don't think he's going to beat Yota Tsuji and Finlay because those guys need to kind of show they're above the TV title right now.
There you go.
If they're questing for the IWGP. He could beat HENARE. That is one of the biggest 50-50 pick'ems, but I'm leaning towards him only getting 8 points out of this and beating Bolton Oleg. But he could get 10, but when you get 10, you start getting into that territory of is the math getting a little fuzzy, are we going to 10 or are we going to 12? And I feel like we're going to 12 in the other one, and it's always really been 12 in this one. So I don't feel great about Cobb's chances to get to 10 on this one. I certainly don't feel great about his chances to get to 12. But in the past, the Cobb story has been about I've been getting closer and closer to post-block play, and I just missed it.
Yes.
So if that's not the story, how do you tell that story of being cost in a personal way or in a way that you didn't see coming? And that's why I feel like the HENARE loss is such a big deal.
And it goes to a little bit of the hierarchy with the titles also, which part of the 10-point plan was clarification on some of these things. And we had the global champion versus the never openweight champion. The global champion won. Now the never openweight champion is going to wrestle the TV champion. If they really want to establish the hierarchy here, then that would be a way for HENARE to win that match and just say, okay, here you go. IWGP World Champion, global, never, TV. There you have it. It wouldn't be written in stone like that, but it would be a little subliminal message that maybe a little bit more than subliminal. Maybe subliminal is not the right term, but maybe a more apparent message about where these belts rank, so to speak. And that could be a way to establish that too. Just a thought there as they go into that
Absolutely.
match.
I'm 100% with you.
Boltin Oleg. How about our man here? Boltin is...
we still got Ren. We still got Ren.
We still have Ren. I tried to skip the House of Torture.
We gotta talk about a little Chaos Goblin.
I tried to
give him a little scruff on the head.
I couldn't do it. All right, fine. You snuck it in on me.
You just gotta push up to the challenge, man.
You push up to the challenge. But Ren doesn't have the results that Evil does, but it's the same function. He could beat anyone because of all the interference and shenanigans. He could lose to anyone because that stuff might backfire. And he is almost actively working not to have good matches, and he's succeeding in not having good matches.
I feel like the story here is that somebody may need to get the same amount of points as Ren Narita to make them feel better about their own performance. So he is just let me pass this threshold of 6 or 8 wins that I am going to get in this tournament. He could conceivably lose the rest of the tournament, just like Evil could conceivably lose out on the rest of the tournament, and it be a referendum on the House of Torture strategy.
Yeah, there you go. And there you go with Ren. We obviously do not expect him to be in any kind of a playoff position at all. No. And so, all right, let's
he
talk
could be
about
a guy that costs Yuya Uemura, for example, and then that leads to like a feud for them down the line. Because Yuya needs to lose something, and Ren needs to have some type of battle, and I certainly don't want him challenging for any titles.
Boltin Oleg, he went 1-1 this week. In Fukuoka, he defeated El Phantasmo. Oleg threw him around properly. ELP selling him as an irresistible force. ELP really sold well for him in that match. That was fun to watch. ELP Rally, though, hit the reverse DVD and a Thunder Kiss for 2. Oleg went for a kamikaze, but ELP grabbed the top rope. Now, the only reason I mention this is because then Oleg just threw him with an F5 all the way from the ring over the top rope to the floor, kersplat. So that'll teach him to grab the top rope off a kamikaze right there. Later on, he did hit the kamikaze after some good near falls. ELP was selling the left knee, which has been an ongoing story in the tournament, and that was the victory for Oleg. He then lost to Yota Tsuji in a short but pretty good match in Yamaguchi. It was it was basic, but done well. I believe it was the first tournament match of the night. So again, that one's not going to go very long. Didn't need to be more than what it was. And so best not to go too long right there. I thought that both guys just did what they did well. Didn't go into territory of things that they don't do quite well yet. Oleg is still green. He's wrestling well, but he's still green. So I thought they played it smart. Like, we're not going 20 minutes here, so let's just do the good stuff. And I thought it was a good short match that Tsuji got the victory in. Once again, we say that this is all about experience for Boltin. His remaining matches are against Uemura, Jeff Cobb, Finlay, and Takeshita. So he has 4 of the best workers in the company. I have a feeling he is going to look pretty damn good going down the stretch in this tournament, which is all you want. He doesn't have to win. He just needs to learn, improve, and they have a big star on their hands.
Yeah, I like the look. I like the way he works. I like his physicality. I'm just happy with Boltin Oleg, and I think they made the right decision bringing him along and just throwing him to the wolves.
But he has turned up, though, hasn't he? He has done well in that situation. Yeah.
When you throw somebody to the wolves and the wolves start running away, it seems like you might have made the right decision.
Yeah, no, but it's a good point, because I was a little, I don't want to say skeptical, but I was a little worried about him. I just thought,
like we all had trepidation. Like, is this a great idea? Is this going to be the guy that drags down the rest of the G1? Spoiler, no, he was not. But
no, that was
like
Jake.
you are worried about, like, are you going to stunt his growth by putting him in a situation that he's not ready for? And no, his growth as a wrestler has not been stunted in any way, shape, or form, and he is rising to the challenge. And it appears that New Japan knew what they were doing. They made the right decision. And no, he is not a main eventer right now. But how many semi-mains and how many main events is he going to have next year at the G1? That's the question to know whether this was the right decision or not.
After that, we also have Yota Tsuji. He was also 1-1 this week. We mentioned the win over Bolton, but he lost the main event to Hirooki Goto in Fukuoka. And, of course, that was the rematch from the New Japan Cup finals. And this time it was Goto getting the victory. He mentioned his father. He mentioned that he's not going to be a stepping stone for anyone. And so good stuff there. Goto gets the win back in that situation, and again, keeps the field all bunched up. There's plenty of time for Tsuji to get back in it, and he has some interesting matchups. Uemura, Cobb, HENARE to come. So good stuff ahead for Yota Tsuji. I still think we are in for a late surge for this guy. I still have him picked to go into the playoffs along with Finlay and Takeshita. I'm sticking with it. I don't see any reason quite yet that those three aren't going to go through, although you can make cases for a lot of guys in this block. But I think Tsuji's headed for a bit of a hot streak.
What would happen if Yuya Uemura got into the G1 post-block play over Yota Tsuji? Would that change how you thought about Yota Tsuji, or will you just feel like they are making sure that the pool of top talent is bigger?
Oh, man. I feel like Tsuji still needs that to be in that top tier. But
guys, he won the cup.
Yeah, but yes,
okay,
but.
So that's the but is your answer. Like,
yeah.
It's one of those, like, if you keep Yuya Uemura where he's at and you keep the Yota Tsuji momentum of where he's at, it feels more right than stopping Yota Tsuji now and saying, no, we have even more stars, and we're putting Yuya in this spot because Yota already won the New Japan Cup, and that furthers the rivalry. It doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't. And I know the New Japan Cup is a big deal, but it's not remotely a G1. And so
I just wanted to talk the counterpoint so that when, like, you're thinking it out and we're going in one direction with this mindset, we think about the alternative of what it could be. It's like, we think Finlay is going, we think Takeshita is going, and we think Yota Tsuji is going. Right now, Yota Tsuji is at greatest risk of not making it. Of the guys that are available and do it, it does seem like Yuya Uemura would be the most likely guy up on the food chain to follow up on that. So when we're thinking about it, could it be Yuya? The gut instinct says, no, it doesn't really feel like it could be Yuya. It feels like it's Yota.
Yeah, but it could be. I mean, it could be.
Yeah. But when we're talking about it and we're watching this tournament, our gut instincts typically aren't wrong. And it feels like Yota Tsuji is being primed for that LIJ squeak in at the very end of the bracket or the block.
Hirooki Goto had a hell of a battle, like I mentioned, with Tsuji there. And that was, with Tsuji. Classic BMF type match. Like I said, it reminded me of the never open weight matches from the past with him. He even hit the Shoten guy, which is my favorite move in wrestling. He hit it. He got the GTR after a struggle. I loved it. Thought it was fabulous. And a nice win for Goto. And a good moment for him to get on the microphone and finish off a show. You don't see that much from Hirooki Goto.
Nope.
In Yamaguchi, he had to do the Narita House of Torture match. It was a ref bump, a low blow, double cross. Narita worked slow, and the match was dull because of it. But we mentioned it before the tournament started. Not a lot of wins for Goto in this tournament, but I think his big thing was that Fukuoka deal, winning the main event, getting to talk on the microphone. I think that's his G1 moment.
The rage against the dying of the light. He is the guy that they are telling the story, guys. that he is the old guard and he sees everyone either bounced out of the G1, not making it to the G1, leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling. He looks around and there's not a whole lot of stablemates in this G1. There's not even a tag team partner. And all he's doing is trying to fight and say, no, we still have a place here. And so
you're right. But it's interesting. His 2 victories are against the new guys, Tsuji and Bolton Ole. Those are his 2 wins. But he has lost to Uemura, though, and Narita for that matter. So he's basically 2-2 against people that are within a year or so of their G1 debuts. So either they're freshman or sophomore efforts.
We may very well be in a situation where next year Hirooki Goto is in the block play to get into the G1.
Yeah, I think he and Okan are headed for that playing. If they maintain the consistency that poor results in the G1 gets you into the play-in tournament the following year. Now, wrestling is not known for its consistency on stuff like this. So, but if they decide to go with that, that would be the.
But there was a lot of older wrestlers and only a couple of younger wrestlers, and I don't know, man. Hirooki Goto can still go.
Yes,
but the youth movement is in full swing, and for the health and prosperity of the company, they have to go and lean hard into it.
El Phantasmo sitting on 2 points there. He has 2 more losses to Cobb and Bolton over the course of it. We talked about both of them. Still could upset Finlay on the last day. Perhaps someone will inspire him. But I also wonder if he isn't going to turn on Jado and rejoin the Bullet Club sometimes with the way this thing is going, because he's just so depressed and so bummed. I don't know who would motivate him to get over the hump on Finlay unless Finlay himself just is the motivator. There's something going on with him that's going to play out in the Finlay match, and it's either him just totally capitulating and rejoining Bullet Club, or it's him finally finding his rally and overcoming the guy that kicked him out. Or I don't know what it is, but obviously he is depressed, sad. His knee hurts. He's banged up. He mumbles on his promos, barely gives them. So there's something happening with this guy before the end of the tournament. He certainly isn't getting to post-block play, so it'll happen, I think, with this Finlay match here on the 14th. But I was thinking that he was going to be the one to keep Finlay out. He still might. But some of this stuff just feels like he might go crawling back.
He could. I definitely don't rule it out. There's not much left for the Gorillas of Destiny there. I'm looking at his timeline of matches. He's got Yuya on the 4th. He's got Takeshita on the 7th. He's got Goto on the 10th. And he's got Finlay on the 14th. I am fully on board with the Finlay defeat for El Phantasmo so that it cost him the block in general. If that were to happen, I'd also kind of lean towards him winning against Takeshita. And I'll tell you why. If he does that, that would mean that his 3 wins would be against Yota Tsuji, David Finlay, and Takeshita, which are all 3 post-block winners, which would give him some sort of confidence that he can win big matches against big-time guys, because the matches that he won were all against the 3 guys that went to post-block play. Okay. There's something to that. It could be the Bullet Club thing. The way that it's like Yuya, Takeshita, Goto, and Finlay makes me think that he can alternate wins and losses and leave it pretty dramatic up to that final night, whether he could beat Finlay or not. But you could also have him lose everything and go straight through to Finlay and have him only get 4 points for the rest of the tournament. Me, personally, I'd lean towards 6 and have Takeshita beat Oleg, beat Goto, and beat Ren Narita and lose to El Phantasmo, and that would still get him to 12 points. I'm not entirely sure if that's the plan, but when I'm looking at it and thinking about how El Phantasmo gets this group back, it's the confidence of knowing that he beat all of the post-block winners.
All right. Well, there you go. That is what we have so far for the G1. Here's what is coming up this week. 5 shows before we reconvene here at the Yamato Arena in Osaka on Saturday. So not the usual building, not in the Edion or anything like that, or that complex. The Yamato Arena in Osaka. A-block matches headlined by Shingo Takagi versus Zack Sabre Jr. and Naito versus Gabe Kidd. Sunday in Aichi, they will have the B block matches. That is Tsuji versus Narita, Cobb versus HENARE in the United Empire Derby. And then we're going 2 nights in Korakuen Hall, Tuesday and Wednesday. So Tuesday, Jeremy, I thought had a really interesting lineup for the A block. You have Shingo and Sonata, Umino versus Naito. You have Zack versus Evil, Gabe Kidd versus Jake Lee in a War Dogs derby, and Okan versus Newman in another United Empire derby. So I think that's a pretty interesting lineup of matches for the G1 there. Wednesday in Korakuen, B block takes over again. Yota Tsuji against HENARE and Hirooki Goto against Finlay. And then Thursday, they're in Kanagawa, back with A block, Shingo versus Evil, and Zack versus Gabe Kidd.
So we have 5 shows to cover, including a Thursday show that we are going to be caught up on when we go live that day.
A lot to do. And the Olympics. Oh my goodness. I am just,
I may be coming from a remote location in sunny Southern California. Who knows? Right. If all else fails, we'll get a guest host, but I will probably be here either way because I love talking the G1, and I love talking the G1 and not my own predictions. Because last year it sucked so bad, I will tell you after the fact. The stress of talking about like my picks all the time really it did not do much for my mental health. So I'm much happier talking about the G1 without my personal like attachment involved. I am so much more happy this year.
Well, fair enough. I'm glad you are. That's good.
I am.
So the only other thing to talk about, unfortunately, Kosei Fujita got injured on the undercard here. He's been wrestling with Zack in a lot of these preview matches, preview tags, but unfortunately he was injured in Yamaguchi. He is an injury to his AC joint in his left shoulder, according to the official release for New Japan. So he will not be on the rest of the tour. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully it's not anything serious. He just needs to rest it up and he can come right back. Far more important that he rests an injury than he works a preview tag.
The good news is, even though we got the black and white line mark, is they were very specific about the dates that he was going to miss.
Yeah.
So when that happens, I feel like they have a very clear idea that it is a short-term injury because they are not clearing him for the entire month or the rest of the G1, which is only another week in addition to that. So this could be a temporary thing. Kosei Fujita is way too talented to be on the show for too long. So hopefully this is temporary and that they are pretty confident that he can come back. They just don't want to say so until they get some recovery time underway.
There you go. All right. So with that, Jeremy, anything else you want to cover? What's else? Oh, okay. Mercedes Moné has been announced officially as wrestling at Capital Collision on August 30th in Washington, D.C. We do not know the match yet, who she'll be facing, but we do know we're going to get Gabe Kidd and Leo Rush for the NJPW Strong Men's title. We will find out soon enough who the NJPW Strong Women's title challenger will be, but Mercedes Moné here in Washington, D.C. Of course, I mean, that's why you put the Strong title on her, so she can headline some of these shows. And that'll be a nice boost. They've already sold a decent number of tickets for that show, over 1,000, I think, last time I checked, without any matches. But I haven't looked at it in the last few days right there. But before they even initially announced formally Gabe Kidd and Leo Rush, there were over 1,000 tickets sold right there. And putting Mercedes Moné on the card can't hurt.
Yeah. We talked about this all the way going back to Forbidden Door. When she got that title and Jon Moxley dropped the IWGP title, it was just a pivot, man. It was the one AEW star that New Japan gets. Now that Jon Moxley is out of the rotation, Mercedes is going to be in the rotation. And we've been saying it and just kind of strongly hinting at it. So I feel kind of validated that, everybody, Mercedes is coming to New Japan again after all this time.
And Colin mentioned, by the way, that the hall they were in last time there in Yamaguchi looked really small. It was. The Ishin Hall is a pretty small place. Only about 1,000 people in the building right there. But, so far, it's been a mixed bag as far as attendance goes in this G1. But it's hard to compare apples to apples this past week, I wanted to mention.
What were the attendance numbers? Do you know?
Nagasaki had 1,600, and that was up from the last time they were in their building, but it's not a normal G1 stop. They hadn't been in there for. It's not a normal G1 town, but it was up from the last time they were in Nagasaki. Fukuoka is really hard to compare. So in night one they had 1,780, and then 1,757 on night two. So that's a total of 3,537. So 3,537. The last time they were in the building was Wrestling Dontaku, which was a one-night event that had Moxley versus Narita for the title and Nemeth versus Finlay. That's when Finlay won the global heavyweight title. So you're talking about a one-night, basically pay-per-view level show versus a two-night G1. Dontaku drew 4,238. And the two nights here drew 3,537. So
that's not great, but I understand the difference is not 1-to-1.
Yeah, and the like I said, these stops, Nagasaki's not a normal G1 stop, and neither is Yamaguchi. So we'll have to see how things go. Obviously, Korakuen should be in pretty good shape attendance-wise, that building, and then we'll move on from there to some more familiar play. And of course, we're going to a strange arena in Osaka. We're not going to Edion. We're not going to the prefectural gym. So it's hard to compare, but attendance has been okay.
This is kind of like, you kind of almost want to you never want to mulligan the attendance number, right? But at the same time, you almost need to treat this as a baseline of attendance numbers for G1s going forward, because you don't have Okadas, you don't have Ospreys, you're down cycling Naito. So this generation of stars, and it's their first drawing opportunity in a G1. So now we're going to get to next year, and we're going to see those ticket sales, and we're going to want to compare them to this year, because like you said, it's hard to compare to previous years. But now that we are kind of in the new hierarchy and the new generation, if you will, they haven't really given it the right phrasing. Next year is going to be when we want to compare the ticket sales from one to the next of exactly how well are we doing here. Very true. Yeah. And like I said, it just wasn't a good, like, we couldn't just look at how did the G1 do in this building last year? We don't know. This week, they didn't go to any. So with that in mind, we'll be keeping an eye on that. We will be covering as we move down the stretch, the 5 shows next week and any other news that pops up. So, Jeremy, any other things we should cover? Should we talk about the other stuff on Fight Game Media before we leave? Sure. Go for it. The Dynamite Show, Power Bombshells, The Wrap, Garrett Gonzalez's shows, his various stuff there. Geez, I mean, there's got the Dynamite Show. The Wrap is now doing live shows on Tuesdays and on PLE recaps. We are really trying to do our best to do long form shows on this program. Let us know if you want more clips, small things, samples of our shows. We were doing them for a while, but we weren't really sure, if people were really getting the feedback, or they just wanted to hear the whole show and call it a day. For the entirety of the Fight Game Media Network, we're trying to do reels and come up with different concepts and stuff. We love what we do. This is all a passion project. There's very little money involved. And when I mean little money, we're talking like grab the change in your pocket and let's see what we can put together for a meal when we meet up one day. This is a passion project, and everyone that is involved in Fight Game Media loves working with each other, loves what we do, loves professional wrestling. And if you want to support that, please hit subscribe, share with friends, share the podcast. We have audio for Speaking of Strong Style. The Power Bombshells with Sam and Mel have their own audio feed. We have a dedicated audio feed. We have many, many different ways in which you can consume the product that we give you here, the content at Fight Game Media. And we thank you very, very much for all the time that you give us as it is. Definitely. And Colin says, as long as this show stays as is, that's cool. Thank you. Right on. I really appreciate that. I have no intention of doing anything else. We love doing this thing. So we will continue if you guys stick with us. So thank you, everyone who listened to us as a podcast, everyone who watched us live. We appreciate the time you spend with us each and every week. We're very grateful that we get to talk to you guys each time. So with that in mind, for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. We will be back at our regular time next Thursday to talk G1. This has been Speaking of Strong Style, and we'll talk to you again real soon.